All right, first up, let's get to that huge story at Manchester United, where tension is growing between the head coach Ruben Amorim and the club's hierarchy. For more on this now, we can go and join our reporter Danielle Khan, who is a very cold Salford Keys by the looks of things. Morning to you, Dan. Clearly all not well at Old Trafford. Is Amorim in danger of losing his job?
Yeah, good morning, Matt. I mean, look, I think that's a question will continue to develop throughout the day, but there's no doubt that there is an increasingly strained relationship between the Manchester United head coach and the Manchester United hierarchy, including the director of football, Jason Wilcox. And I have to say, this is something that has been building up, at least for a few weeks, in the public eye, because there has been a shift by Ruben Amorim in terms of his mood, how he's dealt with us in the media and his news conferences on Friday ahead of the game at Leeds. There was such a coldness, I would say, to the atmosphere in the room, which is so different to where there have been some low points this season after the likes of Grimsby, Brentford. He's always bounced back to really take the pressure off the situation at the club, but there was no such feeling on Friday. And look, a lot of this stress and the growing tensions between him and the hierarchy are really two reasons. I think that, first of all, the tactical approach the team have continued to take this season for the majority of this season, with Ruben Amorim being bullish for moving away from his 3-4-3 system. Now look, if you're Amorim, like he said last season, he believes that the club employed him knowing what he would like to deploy as the United head coach, and that is his system, his players that he wants. Now I think the United hierarchy would like to see some more flexibility, like they saw a few weeks ago in the win against Newcastle. We've seen Amorim revert back in back-to-back games against the likes of Wolves and then against Leeds as well, and the performances haven't been the best. Yes, he does have a limited squad to work with, but there are still slight issues. Although they are making chances, some of the highest in the league, they're not maybe making the best type of clear-cut chances. So look, there is a disconnect there. There's also a disconnect with the transfer window as well. Like any manager in January, of course, they all want to strengthen their squads in January. They were linked with Antoine Semenyo. They were exploring that option, but look, he looks like he's destined to join Manchester City. Amorim would like to see more in terms of recruitment in January, but the hierarchy believe, look, we don't want to make the mistakes of previous regimes and put the club in a bad spot financially. We know we want to strengthen the midfield this year, and if that jeopardises what we're going to do in the summer, we don't want to do that despite being sixth and just a few points off the top four as well. So look, tensions in two areas, but how Ruben Amorim bounces back from this situation with the hierarchy remains to be seen.
Yeah, Dan, you mentioned the atmosphere in there when he said it. I can only imagine the silence and the shock that would have come with that. And it was very specific language, wasn't it? It's, I am a manager, not a head coach. Yes, it was quite incredible being in that news conference, and I'm sure Michael can relate. Sometimes you wonder, have we just heard that from a manager or a head coach in a news conference after a game? And it really stems to like what I was saying about Friday, because there was a mood shift, and for Ruben Amorim to reiterate the message that he believes he is the manager and he wants to be the manager, not just a head coach. He also referenced the likes of Thomas Tuchel, Antonio Conte, Jose Mourinho, but also mentioned the tensions of the hierarchy. I think it was quite pointed that in what we're about to hear, he also mentioned other departments of the club, that they need to do their job, he needs to do his, and then in 18 months when his contract runs out, they'll all move on.
I just want to say that I'm going to be the manager of this team, not just the coach. And I was really clear on that. And it's going to be like this for 18 months, or when the board decided to change. I'm not going to quit. I will do my job until other guy is coming here to replace me. And that is going to finish in 18 months. And then everyone is going to move on. That was the deal. That is my job, not to be a coach. I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach. And every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months, and then we move on.
Look, Matt, this isn't the first time, of course, Ruben Amorim has come out with some interesting comments post-match over the last 12 months or so. We heard it after Grimsby, where he talked about something needing to change, for example. And like I said, he came back very well soon after that in the media.
what I will say is this does feel different. Even just hearing from him there is a coldness, not maybe the necessarily emotion we're used to seeing. And like I said, this does feel different. This is a build-up of a few weeks, so it remains to be seen how he and the United hierarchy resolve this situation.
Yeah. Coldness in the media room. Looks like there's a coldness where you are as well. Thanks very much, Dad. Appreciate it. Right, let's get into this then. There's a lot to digest, isn't there? Before we get on to your potential transfer movement for Manchester United, Stephen, I mean, this came out of the blue, didn't it, really? Similar to Maresca's comments the other day before he lost his job for Chelsea. Why would Amorim say these things in public?
Obviously, stuff has gone on behind the scenes that has probably forced his hand to come out and say he wants to be backed by the club. But I think if you're Manchester United as a club and if you're Ratcliffe that's running it, there's a reluctance to probably go down the line of a manager that plays a specific way and buying players for those specific positions when if he is to leave, there's every chance a new manager's going to come in and play a different shape. 90% of managers don't play with three at the back. So if you're going to go throw all your eggs in that basket and back him to bring in players that specifically play in that system and then in a few months he's gone, then you're ripping up again to try and get those players. So there's a reluctance, I think, there for Manchester United to go and really back him. And obviously that's what he's feeling. He's feeling that they're not going to come out and give him the funds or push him in a direction to really let them kick on for those Champions League positions. And he's letting his feelings be known. And it's basically, get behind me or sack me. And he's kind of putting them in that position.
But I mean, the timing of it is interesting as well because, Maresca did something similar. We saw how that panned out. This is a high-risk game from Ruben Amorim.
It is a high-risk game. The difference is, I think, Manchester United have been so far off it that they're in a slightly better position than they have been. They're pushing towards that. They've been getting slightly better results. They've gone away from being, last season was dreadful, wasn't it, when it comes to performances. So I think he feels that his team are getting closer to being the level that he needs them to be at, and maybe he feels he has that tiny little push left to get them over that line. So I think that's why he's done it. But it is a risky game, and listen, clubs often win out on top when it comes to stuff like this, and there seems like there is a disconnect with him and Wilcox. You'd love to get Wilcox's opinion on this. He's an ex-player, he's played the game, he knows it, he's been around, so you'd love to get his ideas, but that's never going to happen.
Dan said there, very interestingly, he said there's two possible reasons here for this problem. Tactical, in that they may have been questioning the likes of Wilcox, and others might have been questioning his formation and his decisions to change from 3 to 4 back to 3, but also transfers, of course. Now, if we look at transfers, is Amorim likely to get what he wants this month?
Well, firstly, I've never known a manager or a club to talk about a system so much in all my time working here. It's unbelievable.
Because we keep questioning his system.
As soon as he was appointed, Ruben Amorim, it's all you hear about. I think one thing that interests me is that if there's a doubt with the board, they're not going to want to put too much money into players that only fit one system. Because if another head coach or manager comes in, got to be careful what we title them now, but they won't fit the next head coach / manager's system. So, but we know how difficult January is. What interested me in this post-match yesterday, it wasn't if he was prompted. It was sort
prepared.
of a mic drop and then leaves the room. That's what was key for me.
Now, Manchester United drew at Leeds today. Nobody, I think, is particularly surprised at that. It's one of the great, you know better than me, one of the great furious fixtures in English football. Leeds, Man United and at Ellen Road, Leeds can do damage to anyone. Yeah. So that is unremarkable. But Ruben Amorim's had some really interesting post-match things to say, hasn't he? Which I think you know more about than me. So you tell me.
Well, no, it came up to me during the first half. I'd not seen it myself, but apparently it was some bizarre comments around I'm a manager, I'm not a head coach, which I just said before, didn't I, about Maresca, about once you start this sort of what would be game playing in your press conferences, obviously something is annoying him. He's obviously not feeling the support. He's obviously sort of letting go. When you say that you come to the club as a manager, I don't know, I'd have to check it. I thought he was appointed as the head coach of the football club and quite clearly appointed to coach the team. Manager is a title that we don't see, I don't think, anymore. I'm not sure whether even Pep Guardiola is the manager of Manchester City or he's head coach. Manager suggests that he's saying he wants to manage more than just the training ground performance. He wants to overlook other parts of the club because I played under a manager. and they basically have a greater say in what would be other parts of the club, including recruitment, including sort of academy, including style of play, including the way in which maybe the club goes about their pre-season friendlies and the sort of the other things. So I think he's suggesting maybe that he needs to be given the ability to manage more departments of the club, because I think there was part of his quote, and I've not seen the press conference at all, so I'm talking here just from seeing them sent through to me by the Sky producer, about basically other people having to do their jobs in their departments, which again seems that he's not happy with something. So something's happened there in the last week with the quotes that are coming out that mean that Ruben Amorim is now starting to unleash a little bit, and as Maresca did, that I've had the worst 48 hours. It's not quite that, but it's something similar in a way which it's not explicit what he means, but everyone's having to read it, between the lines what he means, which looks to me like he's not happy with something within the hierarchy. That's the sort of thing that basically is coming out of it. He's mentioned my name in there as well, apparently. I think that's one of the sort of things that managers tend to do towards difficult periods. They tend to sort of have a go at pundits. No problem with that whatsoever. I've actually been quite supportive in the last few weeks of Manchester United's performances against Bournemouth and against Aston Villa and against Newcastle. Thought they were very good. I couldn't be supportive after the game the other night against Wolves, if that's what Ruben Amorim was referring to. It wasn't right the other night against Wolves, and you have to say that as well. It wasn't right when we played against Everton with 10 men and we kept 3 players at the back. So I am going to call out when I see things that aren't right, because that's my job. But that aside, I think the bigger problem isn't what he said necessarily about me. In fact, it isn't a problem at all. It's more the problem of what he's saying and what he's insinuating is happening behind the scenes. Maybe around the transfer window in January, maybe he felt that the club would support in January, but I must admit, I was surprised that Manchester United spent that much money in the summer, because when they got knocked out of the Europa League, I mean, everyone knew that Manchester United's financial situation, you just have to look at the numbers. You don't have to base it. This is not guessing. Just go and look at the sort of accounts. They haven't got any money. It's a staggering thing to say, but after 10 to 12 years of mismanagement, of really shocking recruitment, of wastage, of lack of investment in the stadium, of all these things that have come to a fore in the last couple of years, means that Manchester United are currently tight on cash. One of the biggest football clubs in the world. They found, was it 150 or 180 million in the summer? Something like that. On 3 players. They signed Sesko, Mbeumo and Cunha, which obviously was massive investment, and everyone was like, where did that money come from all of a sudden? And so I'm not surprised that there isn't any further money, to be fair, in January. But he obviously wants players, Ruben Amorim. He probably wants a midfield player. He probably wants another wing back. If he's going to cement that 3-4-3 system, it's clear he needs another wing back who can play in those wide areas. It's a unique position that isn't sort of, if you like, a specialist by many. And Manchester United do need a central midfield player of force, of power, of presence. They needed that in the summer, but they chose to go and strengthen up top. So maybe he's been told in the last week or two that he's not getting any players. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what the situation is, but it's not going to go away. And when these press conferences of this ilk start, it's never usually good.
Zinedine Zidane has been linked with the Manchester United job as Ruben Amorim continues to face pressure, but he has 2 demands. Emmanuel Tati, the former France international, has previously suggested that his old teammate Zinedine Zidane would require certain conditions to be fulfilled before he would consider taking the reins at Manchester United. The Champions League winning manager's name has been thrown into the hat as a potential successor to Ruben Amorim, whose position is again under scrutiny following his comments after the draw at Leeds United. United have climbed to 6th in the Premier League table and are 3 games unbeaten, but one of those was a stalemate at home to Wolves before they were held to a 1-1 draw at Elland Road. After, Amorim complained about his lack of power at Old Trafford and hinted he will leave the club in 18 months' time when his contract expires, if he is not sacked before then. That means Amorim's future at United is once again a major talking point, with Ineos left considering whether to axe him after his public criticisms of the club's hierarchy. This will undoubtedly lead to fresh speculation linking Zidane with the job, but luring the former Real Madrid boss back into management may prove challenging. Zidane has been out of the managerial game since 2021, when he parted ways with Real Madrid for the second time. But he remains a highly sought-after coach, given he won 3 consecutive Champions Leagues with Los Blancos, as well as 2 La Liga titles. According to Petit, who played alongside Zidane for France, certain demands will need to be met to coax him back into the dugout. Quote, "Honestly, I know a little bit, Zidane, and he needs to get guarantees if he wants to sign over there in Manchester United," Petit stated in 2024. At the moment, the environment at Manchester United for years has not been good. The stability of the bench, the level of the players as well, the expectation of the club is not the same that it used to be. United is still a huge club, but not on the pitch anymore. And Zizou is very conscious and very careful about that, the quality of the players.